very satisfying because through the hustle and bustle of life, it's one thing when you can provide somebody with something so simple that just, makes them happy, and they really appreciate one small second of what you've done. The recipe we're making today, the tomato bread salad, is a recipe that was developed to deal with day-old or stale bread. It's a way to utilize it so that there's not a lot of waste, and it's very good. Okay, first we're going to take pañota bread, which is it has a slightly sour flavor. I'm going to peel off the crust, and then I'm going to pull it apart. Toss it in a little of olive oil and salt. And toast it in a slow oven, about 225, 250 degrees, for about 40 minutes. So there's not a lot of color on it. There's not a lot of flavor other than the bread drying out. It takes all the moisture out of the bread, and then it absorbs the dressing. That is going to be in the salad, the balsamic and the olive oil. Okay, now we're going to macerate the red onion. Just take your onion, cut it in half, take the tip and the tail off, peel the top layer of skin off the onion, and then we're going to slice it really thin. Then we're going to place it in the bowl, kind of separate it out, pour the red wine vinegar on top, toss your onion in the red wine, and just let it sit for around 30 minutes. Now we're going to make the dressing. First you take the olive oil. Next you take your quarter cup of balsamic vinegar. Next we're going to take our macerated red onions, pour them into the dressing. Then we're going to add about a tablespoon of salt and about a teaspoon of black pepper. And then lastly, you're just going to give it a whisk. Okay, now we'll just assemble our salad, get our bowl. Firstly, I'll add our tomatoes. These are wonderful cherry heirloom tomatoes. And then next, we'll add our breadcrumbs that we toasted earlier. And I just put all the basil on here as well. And then before I put the dressing in, I'm going to add the salt to the salad. The salt kind of helps pull out the sweetness of the tomatoes, so I like to add that first. And then a little bit of pepper. And then last, I'll take the dressing. I'll pour it over the top and then toss it all together. And then at this point, I'll just let it sit for about 5 minutes so that the breadcrumbs or the stale bread that you've used can absorb the dressing and the flavor of the balsamic and the olive oil. And then that's it. It's ready to eat.
Looking for more farm chic project ideas? Find easy ways to add more garden style to your life by checking out P. Allen Smith on Pinterest.
Zucchini. A lemon. I don't know.
A potato.
Onion.
Green beans. Cucumber.
Since 1995, the Global Positioning System, or GPS, developed by the U.S. military, has been operational for civilian use.
I can't wait to see my daddy.
Today, the men and women of the Air Force Reserve continue their vital mission. guiding you safely on your way, while protecting the freedoms we all enjoy. The United States Air Force Reserve, guiding and protecting America.
Mission is a go. You are good to go.
So, have you made your decision yet?
Yeah, I think so.
This year, more than 27,000 children will be diagnosed with a life-threatening medical condition. Their wishes are waiting to come true. You can make it happen. Find out how today at wish.org.
Okay, Alan, take the knees over to the other side and turn your head to the other side.
Oh, yeah, this is feeling good. Now, another way I like to relieve some stress is to, well, get out in nature. Do a little physical exercise, like riding my bike during the fall when the air is crisp and clean. This feels great. I love getting out in nature, particularly this time of year. Oh, it's such a gorgeous time with all the leaves falling everywhere. On weekends, I love to come down to this park, which is not far from my place. It's called Pinnacle Mountain, and what I love about it is 2,000 acres, but it has 8 miles of trails, and so I can take my bike and zip around, and when I finish, I just feel so good. I feel like I've had a spring tonic or something like that. And you know, what's wonderful about riding the bike is it gets your cardiovascular system moving around, you're shaking the blood up, also reduces your blood pressure, it's great for stress, all that kind of stuff. The bottom line is it just makes you feel good. And all the gorgeous things I get to see out here, all the land formations, I mean, there's all kinds of little creeks and rills and rivulets that wind around and rock formations. Of course, the big daddy of them all, or I guess the big mama, I should say, is Pinnacle Mountain herself. But you know, what's so fun about this is that when I get out here, I just feel completely different. And if you do some bike riding, you want to make sure you have the right equipment. Of course, you want to protect yourself with a helmet. You can wear gloves if you like, and your bike needs to fit the trail. For instance, this is a trail bike. You can tell because of its suspension, it's got wider tires, and I like the simple sort of gear system for me because I'm not very mechanical, and anyway, I just need it really basic. But you know, the thing I love the most is just getting out here and breathing in this air. It just feels great, and I hope you'll do the same. Get out and enjoy nature.
Great gardening advice, delicious recipes, and design for all seasons. It's just a click away. Find all this and the best of backyard poultry at pallensmith.com.
Are you constantly on the go? We thought so. So we created the Bonnie Plants mobile site. It's your go-to garden guide whenever you need plant information, gardening tips, or fun project inspiration. And when you're ready to enjoy your veggie and herb harvest, check out the Garden Fresh recipe ideas that are healthy and delicious. Online, anytime. Visit m.bonnieplants.com on your phone.
So when you've had one of those crazy, busy, stressful days where everything seems to get under your skin, just take a minute, take a deep breath, and find a way to relieve that pressure and stress.
One of the ways that your yoga posture practice can help gardeners is to strengthen the parts of the body that tend to become weak as a result of overuse. Okay, the first posture we have for you is a variation of what's called Warrior One. Well, this pose is a variation of something that we call dog pose. posture is a version of a reclining twist.
When all you see is here and now, when everything is crumbling, falling to the ground, this is just a moment, this is not forever. I know it seems impossible when all your hope is gone, but God is greater than the fear you're facing, greater than the storm that's raging. God is with you when you cry, so cry out His name, 'cause God is greater than the pain. He knows the trials His children face. He knows the tears that fall that we all have to take. But don't you dare let go now. Don't let the candle blow out. His love is strong, so just hold on, 'cause He is with you through it all. God is greater than the fear you're facing, greater than the storm that's raging. God is with you when you cry, so cry out His name, 'cause God is greater than the pain. He is mighty, more than able to rescue and restore the ones He loves. He's a refuge and a savior, a savior. God is greater than the fear you're facing, greater than the storm that's raging. God is with you when you cry, so cry out His name. God is greater than the pain. God is greater than the pain. Funding for Cooking 80/20 with Robin Shea has been brought to you by Mom Power Team, Lions Legacy Horsemanship, Foodie TV, and Corral Booth.
Hi, I'm Robin Shea, and I live 80/20. And what that means is 80% of the time I cook clean and healthy and keep it as close to nature as possible. But I always save 20% so it's guilt-free, Southern indulgence. Welcome to the show. I'm Robin Shea, and I live 80/20. And that means that 80% of the time I keep my nutrition clean and wholesome and as close to nature as possible. But I always save 20% for a guilt-free indulgence. Now today we're going to start the show with two 80% recipes, and it's all about having breakfast for dinner. So we're going to make a delicious frittata that we have cleaned up and will fit into your 80% anytime, any day of the week. So let's get started. First of all, a frittata is really just an egg, I guess, quiche with a potato crust on the bottom. So they're delicious, and you can go either way. They can be made to where they really fit into your 20%, or they can be cleaned up like we have done this one and moved over into your 80%. So let's start with a pan that can go from stovetop to oven. So make sure you have a pan that can transfer easily. Let's get a little heat going in our pan. Another tip with the frittata is you want to make sure that the entire base of the pan is really well oiled. Otherwise, when you go to shake your frittata and turn it out, you're going to have some stuck spots. And although it'll still be delicious, you won't have the beautiful presentation that you're hoping for. So let me add just a little bit of olive oil to my pan at this point. And I went ahead and started my potatoes because they take about 10 minutes on your stovetop like this to not get nice and soft and ready for your crust. So I'm going to go ahead and put these back into the oil and show you how we're going to line it up in the pan with the other ingredients. And then we'll get the rest of this going. Put the potatoes back in. You want them about 1/8 of an inch in thickness. And I didn't quite spread my oil out well enough, so we'll make sure before this makes its trip over to the oven that everything is nice and oiled so that it comes out good. Now we're using olive oil, but you can certainly use grapeseed oil or any other heart-healthy oil. Just stay away from the oils that are very heavy and that just are known not to be a good heart-healthy oil. Here's our potato. Let's just show real quickly about the width of what we're wanting. Our little wedges, we want them about 1/8 of an inch. So about like that should be just perfect. Season them lightly with a little bit of salt and pepper. And like I said, it's going to take about 10 minutes for those to start cooking off. Now on top of those, with a couple seconds to get some sizzle going here, but since our potatoes are ready, we're going to go ahead and add some bell pepper and some beautiful red onion right on top of our potatoes. Now, if you would like, and it's completely up to you, if you would like, you can go ahead and caramelize those onions up and cook down the bell peppers a little bit. Either way, they have cook-off time in the oven, so they are going to get nice and soft, but doing the caramelization step will just add another layer of flavor. So if you want to go to that trouble, you can certainly do that. I'm just going to kind of leave them like this on top of my potatoes while we come over here and make our egg mixture. Now, how did we clean up this recipe? Well, first of all, we're going to use 4 egg whites and 2 whole eggs for this frittata. So we're eliminating the yolks in 4 of the eggs. It's just not necessary. You could actually make an all egg white frittata. That would be perfectly delicious, wonderful, and you spared yourself just that additional cholesterol. Eggs are our friends. We just want to be a little careful with how many yolks we consume. But all in all, they're delicious and really should find their way into your 80%. Next, we're going to add just a little bit of stone ground mustard. And mix that together. We have a little whole wheat flour. Now let me get this nice and stirred together. And then finally, just a little bit of milk. Of course, you can use soy milk. That would be delicious as well. So if you are not drinking whole milk for 2%, I've got the whole wheat flour, the stone ground mustard, the milk, and my egg whites, everything blended perfectly together. Set this off to the side. So let's talk about the creaminess that we're going to be using in this frittata and what we're substituting in order to clean this up just one more layer. Right here we have just a tofu. Now, typically it's going to call for a cream cheese. If you would prefer, you can begin the transition or the reinvention process by going half silk bacon or half tofu and half cream cheese. And eventually you'll be able to transition all the way over to the tofu without a real noticeable change in taste or flavor. But going half and half initially is probably a smart thing to do because you don't have that shock factor of a brand new flavor. So that's what I often do, especially with the kids. If I'm introducing them to a new product or something that they're just not used to, I'll kind of temper it, and I'll do kind of half and half for a little period of time until they've gotten used to the new taste, and then eventually just phase out the old one altogether. So on top of our onions, we're going to mix in a little garlic. And all of this smells wonderful, sounds wonderful. You hear the cracking. I'm going to give everything one stir together, and then I'm going to line the crust out again on the bottom of my pan. Just get that garlic good and mixed in everywhere, and then I'll go ahead and make another crust and lay everything nice and flat, and make sure I have a good oil coverage on the bottom so everything flips out nicely. Oh, looks beautiful, smells wonderful. And what do I do next? I'm going to come over here to my spinach, and with my hands I'm just going to take my spinach, and don't expect it to cover the entire bottom of the frittata. I'm just kind of sprinkling it on top of the potatoes and the onions, the bell peppers and the garlic. And then next to that, I'm going to take my tofu and just kind of press it out into spots. I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees, ready to receive this hot pan. So this heat is really helping this tofu spread nicely. So it takes just a second. Go ahead and add it to that and give it just a second to soften up a bit more. Add this last little bit, and then we'll be ready to top it with our eggs. Okay, that looks beautiful. Now before I put the eggs in, like I've mentioned, we want to make sure that we have enough lubrication in our pan. So I'm just going to top these little voids I have on the side with just a little additional olive oil. Make sure my potatoes don't stick to the pan, and that should be perfect. Give my eggs just one more little whisk. I have one that I've already prepared. It's cooked off in the oven. So once I add this, I'm going to go just swap them out. So let's pour this right on top. I'm going to go ahead and turn my fire off. Perfect, beautiful. Top it with just a little bit of Swiss cheese, not too much. Swiss has a very high impact of flavor, wonderful cheese to work with because a little bit goes a long way. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to go crazy with the cheese. And again, sharp cheddar, just a little bit of sharp cheddar is all it's going to take to have high impact flavor. So now this is ready to go pop in the oven and pull my other one out. So follow me to the oven. So there we are. That is exactly what your frittata is supposed to look like. And I'm not going to take this one out quite yet. As you can see, this is a little hot. As you can see, it's nice and loose around the edges. So I just have to get my little spatula around and loosen the rest of that out before we flip it out. So here we are with our second 80% healthy recipe. And of course, the theme today is breakfast for dinner. This is a delicious sweet potato pancake. Wonderfully healthy, will satisfy that craving that we all get for a nice fluffy pancake from time to time. So let's get started. We want to have our griddle medium. I have to keep a very tight eye on this griddle because sometimes it gets some hot spots. So we're just going to kind of get the heat going, and then we'll test it with our oil here in a second. We want to mix together some whole wheat flour and some baking powder. And I'm just going to get that blended together well. And in my blender, I'm going to mix some sweet potatoes. Prepare your sweet potatoes however you choose. You can cube them, dice them, and put them in a little bit of water and boil them down until the water is absorbed, or just pour off the excess when they become fork tender. You can actually pop them in the oven and bake them off and then peel the outside skin off, and you have the nice soft inside. So however you choose to get your finished sweet potatoes is perfectly fine. So add your sweet potatoes to your mixer. A little bit of brown sugar for just a nice little added bit of sweetness. We have some cinnamon. And then just a little bit of nutmeg. Smells wonderful. And then just 4 pats of butter. And this is going to make quite a few pancakes, so don't be overly concerned about the butter. Again, this is an opportunity to clean it up some, so if you would like to omit the butter and go with just a little bit of grapeseed oil in place of it, you can certainly do that. It will lose a layer of flavor, and in this case, I'm using a nice organic butter, so use at your discretion. If you are ready to give up that little added layer of flavor, then you can certainly do that and clean it up even further with some grapeseed oil. So then we're going to add just a little bit of milk, and I'm going to kind of be sparing with my milk. I'm not going to go crazy yet. I'm going to see how it starts to adjust with our dry ingredients. Then we're going to do 2 egg whites and 1 whole egg. And again, when you're learning to work with just egg whites and move away from the egg yolks, you are going to lose just a layer of richness. So kind of temper that transition a little bit. You don't have to go straight to all egg whites. Leave your 1 or 2 egg yolks in there until you're ready to give them up. And you may never completely be ready to give them up because they are so rich and full of flavor. There we go with that one. And we're going to leave the yolk in this last one. There we are. Let me pop my lid on. Get this blending going. Shouldn't take long at all. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to have to mix in, well, you know what? I'm going to do it right into this bowl. And set my blender to the side. That way I can just slowly incorporate my milk until I have the right consistency. Get all of this out of my way. And start blending it up. And I am going to need some more milk, but it looks beautiful, and it's that wonderful sweet potato color. That should be good. And we want this about the same consistency that you would want just traditional pancakes. So I think I'm going to add just the remainder of the milk, and it will be the perfect consistency. And before I stir it off, I'm going to go ahead and get my oil nice and heated. This is just a canola oil. And again, I told you I get a few hot spots on this griddle, so take the back of my spatula and just kind of rub it out. I usually have 1 or 2 tester pancakes before I know that my heat is at the right temperature. One little fact about your batter here, once you get it blended, don't over blend it, so don't just continue to stir. Just get it to where everything is mixed together and it's the right consistency for your pancake. Otherwise, it will toughen your pancakes and they won't have that nice lofty, light texture to them. They'll be a little more hard. So and this is perfect. This is about where we want our batter, where it just kind of drips off. So we're going to do a tester, make sure our griddle is at the right temperature. and then make whatever adjustments we need to make to that. You hear just a mild little sizzle. So I'm going to go ahead and pour a couple more. So now we just wait, and of course, just like any other pancake, we wait to watch and see when the little bubbles begin to happen on the inside of the pancakes. We know that they're coming up to doneness, and we can flip them over to finish them off cooking. So let's give these just a second. Ooh, we're about ready to flip. Ah, perfect, light and fluffy. The outsides are nice and toasted. Ta-da! I'm going to get this area cleaned up. They smell amazing. The boys will love these. Breakfast for dinner. Who doesn't love it? It can be in your 80%. Today's grab and go certainly stays in theme because it's an egg and avocado wrap. So let's get started. Not a lot to this, but remember, our number one enemy when we're trying to reinvent our relationship with food is hunger. If we let ourselves get hungry, then we just fall victim to poor food choices. So if you have a lot of readily available grab-and-go snacks, just have a whole arsenal of weapons against that hunger so that you don't fall victim and end up making 20% food choices in your 80%. So let's get started. We have just a little skillet here, very low heat. We're going to add to that just a little bit of olive oil. Not too much, maybe a tablespoon. Now, if you would like to use just egg whites, you can certainly do that. We're going to go ahead and scramble up 2 whole eggs. And while they are working themselves over here and scrambling up, let me pop those. Beautiful. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt and pepper on top. Then I'm going to come over here to our avocado and our salsa. Let those just kind of cook off. So take your avocado. This is going to call for about a half an avocado. Go ahead and cut it, twist, and there's the seed. So if you wrap that really tightly with just some plastic wrap, you can really keep this from turning. So just make sure you get as much air off of it as possible because it can become very unappealing very quickly. It oxidizes very quickly, and although it doesn't affect the flavor, it certainly affects the appeal of the avocado. So put those in your little container. Have a good quality salsa, whatever salsa you enjoy. Make sure I'm not going overboard over here. Let's go ahead and get this started by taking our fork and just kind of pressing through. If you wanted to do this in a little food processor, you could certainly do that. That would be fine as well. And I'm going to mix in my salsa. My boys love this. You could even open a little can of black beans, rinse your black beans well, and layer these with black beans too, and that would be delicious. So let's come over here, give these one little stir, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn my fire off because these are just about finished. But let's talk about what we have here. We just have a good quality Greek yogurt rather than a sour cream. What you can do is take your Greek yogurt and put a little bit of lemon juice on it, and it really is very difficult to taste the difference between sour cream and Greek yogurt when you add that little bit of lemon juice. So I'm going to take my whole wheat tortilla, take my beautifully scrambled and lightly salt and peppered eggs, layer those in there. Take my avocado and salsa mixture. Perfect. And then, oh, here we are. Take a little bit of my Greek yogurt that we put a little bit of lemon on. Hold the end up, fold it over, pull it back, and wrap it. Beautiful, wonderful, healthy fat, nice high quality protein with your Greek yogurt, some great grains in your whole grain wrap, and a beautiful way to stave off hunger and stay in your 80%. So now is our very favorite part of the show. We get to enjoy our 20% indulgence. And of course, that's why we live over in our 80s, so that every now and then we get to enjoy wonderful favorites that just don't fit into our healthy lifestyle. We're going to stay in theme, and we're going to be enjoying some breakfast for dinner. And every good Southerner knows that breakfast sausage is very, very popular and almost mandatory when you're enjoying a big breakfast. So here we have just some beautiful chicken sausage that I'm going to go ahead and slice in half, and I'm going to start cooking it off in my pan. So this is very, very simple cooking technique. You could definitely do this in the oven, so if your stovetop is really, really occupied, I thought that was going to give me a little sizzle. If your stovetop is really occupied, go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Go ahead and do all the prep points that we're doing here, but you're going to want to go ahead and apply your maple syrup before you pop them in the oven. We're going to let them cook down for just a second, and then we're going to caramelize them with our maple syrup. I think it's time for me to give these just a little flip. Perfect, and they're starting to brown, so I think we're okay to go ahead and begin caramelizing them with our maple syrup. So I'm going to give these a little flip, and what we're waiting for is we're waiting for this maple syrup to kind of begin to caramelize, which it's doing. You see the bubbles, and you see it getting nice and deep and rich in color. That's just what we're wanting. And of course, like I mentioned, this can take place in the oven, so if you don't have stovetop space, no problem at all. And I think they're just about ready, so I'm going to go ahead and pull them off. It could cook maybe another minute or so, but you can see that maple syrup nice and thick and just kind of running down the side. Absolutely delicious. Wonderful way to spend your 20% if you so choose. We did clean this up just a little bit by choosing the chicken sausage here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed our breakfast for dinner show, and we managed to keep it clean all the way around. Both of our 80% recipes were fantastic. Let's just take a look at what we created. First of all, this amazing frittata, and the way that we cleaned it up a little bit is that we made sure that we used a lot more egg whites than whole eggs. Remember, you can transition yourself into the taste of just pure egg whites, but go at your own pace. We also used just a wonderful tofu rather than a rich cream cheese. So again, temper yourself and introduce those changes slowly. We baked it off. It came out perfectly. A lot of tips on this particular dish. Then we came over here and we made these wonderful sweet potato pancakes. I have a house full of boys that love pancakes, and I can feel good about giving these to them anytime. So, wonderful recipe for sweet potato pancakes. Top it off with a little bit of maple syrup, and that is a home run right there. Next, we made our grab and go, something you can feel really, really good about. Nice, healthy fats, a good bulk of high protein with both the eggs, and then we used the Greek yogurt that we put a little bit of lemon juice on so it would really imitate some sour cream, and of course the avocado and the salsa that we blended together with a nice, healthy whole grain wrap. And then we prepared this amazing chicken sausage where we caramelized the maple syrup on top. So everything looks absolutely amazing. I think I'm going to start right here on the frittata. And until next time, please remember to keep it 80% healthy, 20% indulgent, 100% delicious. I'm Robin Shea, and we will see you next time.
Funding for Cooking 80/20 with Robin Shea has been brought to you by Mom Power Team, Lions Legacy Horsemanship, Foodie TV, and Corral Booth.
The ladies of the Christian View are stirring things up.
What's the next time we dated? It's a great thing.
For me, it was one day. Catch the fun.
No, my false eyelashes.
The controversy.
When I went through what I went through, I could not press my charge.
The transparency.
I spent years in isolation, thinking that I needed to hold all that in.
And the divine.
God doesn't condemn us. We don't need to condemn ourselves.
As they take on today's hot topic and dish out the Christian View. Airing Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. on WATC 57 Atlanta.
Experience the truth and power of grace for your everyday life with teacher and pastor Creflo Dollar.
God is never going to be bankrupt. God has never been bankrupt. And now it's time for men to understand that your supply comes from Him.
Be inspired and receive encouragement through the Word of God.
But when you encounter Jesus, He'll set you free to be who you are.
Don't miss the Changing Your World broadcast with Creflo Dollar right here on this station.
Hello, I'm Deborah Ross with Choose Life Today, empowering you to live in the blessing. Find me with my devotionals on WATC.tv on our website. There you'll also find TV schedules, programming, Ministry Prayer Center, and how to connect with us. Choose Life Today, empowering you to live in the blessing. I'll see you there on WATC.tv.
It's your car. You take it to people you trust.
Oh boy, a total rebuild. You what? Rip out your legs. Well, that's just an estimate, little lady.
They're your children. You want to keep them safe.
Hey, kid, shut your tracks.
It's your health. You want a doctor with experience.
Hey, Joan, I'm Skip, and I'll be your doctor today.
I'm fine. Thanks.
It's your finances. You want to go to the experts.
Quick and easy. Cut your payments by 50%.
Go to people with experience, real people you can trust.
We've got all these credit card bills. We've got to find a way to get out from under this debt. We can help.
The National Foundation for Credit Counseling is a nonprofit organization that has been helping people for 60 years. Our certified counselors can help you eliminate your debt and teach you ways to stay out of debt. Visit debtadvice.org. National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Real solutions for real people.
At what age is the color that your skin was meant to be no longer beautiful? Every year, millions of young women try to change the skin they were born with and say they die for darker skin. Sadly, some actually do. Melanoma is the second most common cancer in teens and young adults, and one person dies from melanoma every hour. Change your thinking, not your skin. Stop tanning. Learn more at spotskincancer.org. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
Scam artists are trying to trick seniors into giving them their Medicare numbers.
I heard that, and I did something about it. I joined the Senior Medicare Patrol, where I teach others to protect their Medicare numbers, review statements to spot false charges, and report fraud.
Help the Arbor Day Foundation replant our national forests.
Welcome to Ardent Sight.
got a new project going here today, and I hope you're going to be thrilled to see something new start. We've been having some fun with some other pieces that I did want to do this little quick thing and teach you something else that a lot of people don't even think about, and that is pulling out a canvas that maybe you've had something on it to start with before, or even a piece of paper that you might have just started to rough something in. You can always erase it off, right? Or smudge it out and use it to your advantage sometimes. And well, in the case I've got here, I was looking for a certain size canvas because I wanted to do a slightly longer piece, but I didn't want something that's twice as wide or tall as it is wide or tall, right? So I wanted something that was kind of like 1 3/4 in comparison to the width or height. But I'm doing a taller, more elongated piece this way instead of wide, so this is what I was trying to do. And the thing is, I was trying to find a good canvas, but I couldn't. But I happened to stumble upon this canvas board. Now, I prefer stretch canvas, but this happened to be the right size at the last minute. And what it is this board right here. And it's a piece, apparently, one of my daughters tried to start a painting on years ago. Now, I know it had to have been at least 10 years, if not more. So at least I know that the paint is thoroughly dry. That's one of the good things on it, because it does help if that painting underneath, the underpainting that's still on there, is completely done. The other thing good about this one is it's in a dark color, and it's over most of the canvas, so it won't interfere a whole lot with it. The only problem I've got is I noticed there's some that's a little bit of a thicker density here where they came, whichever daughter, I'm not even sure which daughter did. I think I know, but I'm not positive. So they had paint a little bit thicker here. Now I tried, sometimes you can take a palette knife, and as sharp as these are, you'd think that I could cut into it, but I'm having a little trouble trying to get that off. I got a little bit off, but you can smooth it down. You know, actually, another thing I could do is to sand it down, but I don't have a sander with me, or even sandpaper, so I'll just live with it. It'll be all right. At least, you know, it'll add texture to the painting. Try to think of things in an optimistic viewpoint. That's my point right there. That's my thought here, what I'm trying to get across too. Keep in mind something optimistic, but think about what you can make out of something, and instead of just, you know, throwing it away or just, you know, just leaving there for years like I did. I just overlooked it. It was back in a corner and I didn't even think about it. And all of a sudden, there it was. And I said, oh, well, this looks like about the right size. So what I'm going to do is I want to get started with this. I want to cover this with the color I want. I am doing kind of an evening scene, like sunset or almost sunset. I'm doing this like this couple on the beach that are sand crabbing, I think it is. They're doing sand crabbing, but with their little kids, and I thought that was a sweet thing, and I like the lights, and so that's what we're going to put in. So let's start covering this canvas. The canvas is nice and dry, and I don't have to worry about anything with contractions. That's the other thing is, a lot of times if paint has dried but not dried enough, you can have different, or if it's still drying. You know, paint actually takes about 6 months to dry thoroughly. When you do a canvas and a painting, before you put like the, you know, like a glaze or a picture varnish over top of it, it's best to wait 6 months because that paint is contracting and drying as it goes. And if you put something wet on top of it, that's a different contraction compared to the one that's already on there as it dries. So as one is pulling, it's pulling hard on the other one, and that's going to cause cracking later if you're not careful. So it's a good thing is to have it thoroughly dry. Well, I know this has to have been 10 or 15 years, so I know it's dry. And that's something to think about when you start using an old one. If you're not going to, I mean, it can be dry even within 6 months if you need to. But just keep in mind, you want to be careful with that, okay? All right, let's get started. I want to get a bigger brush just to get some paint on it. And Obviously, I want to use a blue or blue-violet. So I'm going to grab, let's see, I think a little bit of cobalt rather than the cerulean or the French ultramarine. I'm going to go for more of the light colors first, or the lighter colors, before I start mixing into more. I want to get a little bit of mixing medium on this. On my brush, not a whole lot, so that means I need to kind of squeegee out a little bit out of my paintbrush before I actually get into this other. Because I'm going to be mixing it a little bit more thoroughly here as we go. Now this is for the lighter areas. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to try to kind of figure, that's going to be a pinker color, but I'm going to do maybe a band more here. I'm going to do a sky that's going to be a little lighter. So I'm going to try to start just covering these in. Maybe get some little bands of color going across, even though I'm going to put people in it later. Get some more paint here. Now, obviously, I prefer stretched canvas. Now, in case you're not aware of that or why, it's because there's a better bounce to the canvas when you're working on it. It's got this spring to it that's nice, that gives back. When I hit this with my brush, you can hear it hit, and you can hear it, you know, it may bounce, but that's just the board itself bouncing, not the canvas, because the canvas is adhered to that board. All right. Now I'm going to throw a little cerulean in with this one. Just a little bit to kind of change my color. It won't be quite as pinkish. It won't be quite as violet as the other. There's a few of the slightly more greener colors to it in some ways. All right, I'm going to try to put that in there just a little bit better. I want the pinker ones on the top. Some pink there too, but I want it to go darker pretty quick here. And it's such a dry canvas. It is so dry, it's just sopping up everything. Let me get some more violet in with this right now, so I can get that sky part a little bit better. And I may even throw in a little bit of sunset just for the fun of it on my own, just to have a little bit of fun with the whole thing. So I'm getting some cobalt, no, some ultramarine violet's what I'm getting right here. And it's got a lot of purple to it. But I'm going to add some of the ultramarine violet over here, the cobalt violet as well, because I want a redder one right here. Do you see that? Do you see how that color changed? But I need to go a little bit lighter than that for right now. So back to pull out this white, mix with it. This is exactly why I put these whites out here. That's a pretty violet color, but that's all right for where a couple of places, so I can use that now and then tone it down on something else. But I want to put some of this in this sky part up here. So I'm just trying to cover the canvas right now. That's the main thing. And I want to get some of these violets down here as well. I want to get a deeper blue up there. Some of this kind of blends with that deep color that's behind it, actually. Not too bad. Now, I want to go deeper than this. Now I'm going to bring more blue into it though. So this time I think I will go with the more French ultramarine blue and pull it out. I do have that Sennelier blue too, but that's got some phthalo in it. That's going to go a pretty long ways off, so just a tad of it right there. I want to get a little more of this of the French ultramarine. Get it right there. Look how much bluer. Do you see that? And this will be all right for some, but it's a pretty strong blue, so we'll see. So just pull what's right there and put with this. I'm going to need a few more of those violets though. I can tell that right now. Okay. Let's get some more of that right here. Now I like this blue, but I want to go a little deeper with it. So I'm going to pull in some more of this same blue with a little bit of this French ultramarine. Just grab a little big hunk of it right here. We're not going for a little dabble, do you, this time? We're getting a big hunk of color right there. Now, what do you do to gray a color? Do you remember? Remember what I've told you over and over and over? If I want to gray this color, what is the easiest and best way to do it to have vibrancy and not get this flat gray? Do you remember what I told you? Is to use the complementary. Remember that? So I have a brilliant blue right here. Look at this. Just very, very brilliant. I can go darker with it, yes. I could even put some of this Sennelier brown. I could put this neutral tint, which is kind of a charcoal blackish color. It's not really exactly that. That's a vibrant blue. Now, I could still use this in some parts, but I think it'd be better to tone it just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is take that complementary. Now, if you're on the color wheel, if you're familiar with the color wheel, and you have the red, yellow, blue, right? You've got the opposite on that would be right between that red and yellow, right? So that gives you an orange if it's on the opposite color. So I want a little bit of orange to just tone this into a deeper gray. I need to bring in a color wheel to show you, demonstrate sometimes. I think that's the next thing I need to do. So I want to add a little bit of this orange. I might even prefer this Chinese orange, but let's try this first. And I don't want it to go green. That's the other thing. It might be, if it's too yellow, it'll go green. But look at that. Look, I just turned it gray. It's a greenish gray, blue, but it's there. So I think I need to add a little more of the red to it to tone that out. But that's a pretty nice one. It's not bad. Put just a little bit more of that blue with it. Just a little more red. So I want to get this cadmium red deep is what I want to get.
Wow.
Put that with it. See if that comes a little closer to what I want. Yes, I think that's much closer. I may leave that little edge, but I may have to come back and make it again because I think I just mixed it in, didn't I? Okay, right there. So what I may have to do to get that green for those trees in the background. Now this may be a little lighter because of what the color was already in the brush. So what I could do is use some of that right here. And put it right in here, and I want to take it carve it out there. To where I'm going to have this sort of like horizon line somewhere in here, right in there. Shoot, maybe somewhere right in here. Okay. And then I need that greener color for the other. But I guess I may have to bring some of the sky back down just a little bit if I'm going to have this in this section right here. I still want to keep a little highlight of this color. Just a touch of it coming in right here. A little bit of it coming across yet. So I may have to lighten that some. So I can mix some of this white that's right here. Maybe pull a little more of that blue in with it. For this section right here where I want it. I'm trying to get the underpainting, the background first. That's what I want to do first. Okay. Now let's get a little more of this with the deeper green. Now I could add the orange or I could add some green to it. Let's see what we get. That's part of the fun of it, isn't it? Well, I've already got a little bit of this viridian I've gotten into, so I'll get just a little bit more of that and throw that in here. I may take a little bit of this cinnabar green with it. They're very similar in color, actually. Now, the thing is, I don't know if this is going to be dark enough. Dark enough and green enough. It may be for parts of it. Okay, like right through here, some of these sections. But I don't know how high I'm going to take it yet. Okay, just... But that'll be art for now. Gives a hint of where that's going to be, at least, right? Okay, let's see if I can get a little more. I wanted to smooth this just a little bit more into this section here. I've already got green on my brush, so I'm going to set this right over here just a little bit, and I'm going to tone it down a lot, too. Of course, I've already got it on my brush, so I want to squeeze that out as much as I can right now. Take the rest of this white that's in here, because I wanted to get just a touch more of that right there, and then come back and try to at least block in those people really, real quick for you. Quickly, as we say. So I'm back to the blues with some white. Let's see here, just a little bit more of that. Didn't quite get it picked up, I don't think. There. That's pretty strong blue, though. So if I mix it in with all of this, probably shouldn't have added the white. That's the whole thing there. But at least it'll be a different color than before because of all these things mixed together. Now let me just see what this does as I put it up there. And if it's not quite what I want, I can adjust it. I wanted to just sort of pull in some of these right here. Maybe right in this section. Well, we'd help if the canvas stayed in place, wouldn't it? Okay, maybe a little bit of this down at the bottom, too. Thing is, I want these to be a little straighter. I've got to be careful I don't go downhill with them. All right, let's see if I can squeeze in something right there. I like that pure, almost pure magenta going right through that one section. So I'm going to just put a little touch of that. I don't know if it's going to carry on the brush or not because I got all this blue, but I'm going to just try See if I get a little touch of it right through here in some places. And see what happens. Now I gotta decide what color I want his shirt. And I might just do it in a violet. I don't know yet. Or this kind of violet blue of what I've got here right now. But I need a smaller brush for some of this coming up. But I kind of like that. I think I want to just pick up what I have right here on the edge of that. Put it right in here. And see if I can just place where I'll have his shoulders and his body for a little bit of it. I've got to figure reflections down here too. And this might be where the head is, right there. Maybe too big for the head too. So I've got to figure his head. Now, do I want his head to come above those trees? That might be the other thing. I might want to lower some of this atmosphere here just a little bit. Just bring it down. See if I can lower that just a little tiny bit. I could raise his shoulders up a little more, and then maybe put his head right through there, see? So that it comes right just above that the tree line in the background. To figure about where a leg will be approximately. And another one. So I'm just kind of basically just blocking something in. All right. Now I'm going to need another brush is what I'm going to need right now. So I'm going to put this over here to clean for a little bit. Looks like I need to clean my hands while I'm at it too. Okay. See if I can just get a hint of a place where these people will be and where the light will be. So that means I need a lighter need a brush. That's what I want right here. Her outfit's very pink, actually. So I'm going to take this color, and I'm going to just set it aside. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it right here for just now. Different towel, because I don't want that bigger towel right at the moment, right there. Now, well, see if I can just wipe that back a little bit. Get it out of our way somewhat. Still going to be there unless I just take the linseed oil and wipe it on down. So, but I can consider that underneath as a color underneath what I'm painting. Now, I want to get some lighter and a pink, actually. I want to get a pink.
I'm coming, Mom.
I mean, there will be violets in there too, but right now I think I want just a pink, so I'm going to just grab a little bit of this cadmium pink. I'm not sure, I think that's, okay, so I'm going to have to figure here, I want to figure a child in here, I want to figure his pants leg about here too, and hers, somewhere in, well, maybe a little farther over, right? Because I've got to have her arm come down in here too, see, so that's too close. So we need to just wipe that off and come back, because I would need to figure her shoulder somewhere right about here is what I'm figuring, which comes up over to there. She's leaning over. Okay, so we've got a little bit of an arm coming down to show to the child something, right? Bend that down a little bit too. And I moved and bent it too much. Don't want to bend it quite that much, so I'm going to figure just a touch of it coming down.
Amazing.
And I'm going to figure like short somewhere right in here. And they're going to have to go darker on that side. So I'm just kind of placing right now. Now we're going to have this other little child right down here. So I'm just kind of placing where her back will be real quick. So I'm just trying to get this in as a general placement, and that's all. Then we got the other child on this side. And we've got this brilliant light right in the middle. So right now they may have to be headless. I guess I could just place a head of some kind so she doesn't look like she's gone completely. A little Chinese orange of some kind, and just place a little bit. But see, I want her to be closer down where she's looking at the child. Okay, and the other child's head will be somewhere in here. So I'm just kind of getting a general placement of where I want things. So his face might fit in here. All right, some legs, a couple of things. And then we have reflections coming. But at least it's covered. The canvas is covered now. You can have an idea of where things are going to go. All right, let me just get that brilliant white in there. Just a touch where I know it's going to go, like right here. And down here, these lights. And then we could just say, okay, that's enough for today. Get some reflections going in here, and I think that will be a little bit of a telltale sign of what's going to happen there. So at least I've got the canvas covered now. And what I can do is just start working and filling this in. His pants legs are back there too, and they're a lighter color. So we're going to fill that in later. Anyway, I've got the canvas covered. I've got the idea in there, so I hope you'll enjoy it. Go try something on an old canvas. Pull it out and have some fun. And keep your brushes wet and your art in sight. And just don't be afraid to do it. Take care. And come back and see what happens.
We are your radio station for inspiration. Atlanta's inspirational talk radio. Love 860 WAEC, featuring well-known local and national ministries and information to support your healthy lifestyle 24 hours a day. Plus news, traffic, and weather to keep you in the know while you're on the go. Talk that matters. Atlanta's inspirational talk radio. Love 860 WAEC. Online at love860.com. Also on Facebook.
Preteens and teens should get vaccinated against meningococcal meningitis, a rare but serious disease. Health officials recommend vaccination. Go to voicesofmeningitis.org.
Welcome to Right Now. I'm Jennifer Shookman, and most of us want to get better at something that we really feel passionate about. We want to improve. We want to make it the best it can be. But sometimes when people help us, it sounds like criticism. Oh, I would have done it that way, or you should do it like I would do it. When is criticism good and when is it bad? When is it good to give it and when is it good to receive it? Giving and receiving criticism, it's what we're talking about right now. Unfortunately, I have a great panel and no criticisms about
I'll just tell you about what you just said. I thought...
It would have been much more effective.
I would have done it this way.
I was going to say you were criticizing me during the commercial break.
I could, but I couldn't.
Gavin Adams, you are pastor of Watermark, which is a mega church in the Atlanta area. It's a part of North Point Ministries.
Yes.
You also have a new website up.
I do.
People can find links
You
to
can be very critical of it if you want to be.
I knew it, yeah.
They can find links to your preaching online as well. And
Absolutely.
do you have links on your website to your preaching?
I do, yeah. It's gavinadams.com, and there's a speaking section. There's links to the things that I do there, and it's really just a place for me to think out loud, and I probably am pretty critical as I do it. So that may not be I may feel bad about that in 30 more minutes, but...
We'll let you know.
Yeah, thanks. You critique it.
We'll critique it, yeah.
And Jessica, I don't know if I ever hear you critique. You are always very positive and encouraging when you talk.
No, she critiques in a laughing way.
So
she's like joyful, like she tells you that you're stupid. It's totally different.
So we don't hear it. Like,
That's right.
John is laughing.
Thank you.
You are a public relations expert, which may explain why we just said what we did.
Yep.
You're owner of your own PR firm. You work with a lot of authors and do book tours and things. And you're also a professor of communications at Kennesaw State University.
Yes.
So you're a teacher,
I'm very critical of my students' writing. It's pink ink, so it's not quite as harsh.
As red?
Not quite as harsh as red. This is step above.
I'm totally a pink ink grader.
I know, I am.
So great.
I have a dilemma. Okay, here's the situation. I went and heard a friend of mine speak recently, and he was giving this large presentation speaking thing in front of an audience, and...
Are you going to critique me right now?
Well, no, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. Actually, our producer said that. He goes, you do that for a lot of people. Every one of them's going to think it was them. No, it wasn't Gavin. Although I have done that before. But he did a great job. But there were a few things he could do that I just felt like would make it a little bit better, would help people understand his message a little bit clearer, and probably would benefit him because he'd sell a few more books and things. Should I tell him those things? He didn't ask for it.
No.
No?
There, you had it right there. I was with you until you said he didn't ask for it. No. When he asks for it, because if he's wise, he'll know that you have this ability and this knowledge, and he will come looking for it.
I think this is interesting, though. If he's wise, he'll ask you.
Yes.
If he is unwise, he won't listen if you tell him.
Oh, that's
true.
So if he's wise, he'll ask. If he isn't wise enough to ask, trust me, your sharing isn't going to help.
It will not end well.
What if he did ask for feedback?
Yeah.
How can I be sure that he'll take it well? Because a lot of people don't.
You can present critique in a humble, positive way. I know. You can talk about, I know this may sound harsh, but, and then you give the harsh comment. So you're kind of ramping. It's not ripping off the Band-Aid.
Okay.
It's loosening the Band-Aid a little bit, and then you just go.
But that's painful. But no, I think approach is everything. I mean, we say this all the time. Approach is everything. I mean, with our spouse, with our children. I mean, it isn't so much what we say, it's how we say it. I get asked this a lot, of course, because I lead a large church, and so I have a lot of staff and people who work, kind of with, for, around me. They'll ask me all the time, what did you think about?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll say, do you really want to know, or do you want me to just be encouraging? You know, because I think sometimes the critique can feel very, harsh, or it could just really be deflating.
Right.
We may talk about this eventually, I guess, but because I think sometimes our identity is too wrapped up in what we do.
Do they answer you honestly, though, when they say that? Do some of them go, no, I just want you to encourage?
Now, so...
I get that, because people know when they come to me. My close friends that I walk with day in, day out, they look to me as the truth person. And not necessarily the happy truth person, but if you're going to ask me a question...
I'm going to tell you what I think.
I'm going to tell you what's going on in this brain. And so sometimes they do come to me and say, okay, I need you to just listen. And that's when I know they just need a sounding board, but they really don't want to hear what I have to say on it.
All right, going back to my friend, he was with two other people when he did this speaking thing, and one of them was horrible. I felt like it brought down the whole kind of thing.
Now she's talking about mine.
I really want to tell him this person did not reflect well on everything that you did, but I don't know if he can change it because this person is his boss.
Sure.
And so I'm wondering, should I mention that or just let that go?
There is a great rule. When something is unchangeable, don't touch it. Like if someone asks you, what can I do to look prettier, you don't say fix your nose, because that costs a lot of money too, and they might not be able to do it.
Right.
You might say, use some special shadowing around your nose to make it look longer, whatever the case may be. But you've got to be careful with the critique that you give. But honestly, this situation, they should know you and know your expertise and ask you for it. Otherwise, it's not yours to touch.
Okay. All right, 23% of consumers will give feedback directly to companies following good service, but 32% will do it following bad experience. Which feedback are you more likely to give to a company? Good feedback or bad feedback?
Oh my gosh, in the day of Twitter, if I finally get so frustrated and I'm not getting the true customer service, it's not just that I'm being unreachable, I will take to Twitter and I will let them know, or find the CEO on LinkedIn, and I've done that with a company in this area. And then when they finally did step up to the plate and give me the proper service, the CEO actually asked me if I would mind tweeting that, they had stepped up, and so I did.
We rarely share positive experiences, though, especially when it comes to companies, organizations.
Customer service.
Yeah, I never, call a company and go, hey, I just want to tell you, the sandwich I had was really good.
Yeah, so you're really winning right now.
But we just don't do that. And, I wonder why. We should do that more. Right. I think part of the reason we don't is when I think it's a little bit of a comparison trap for us. When we critique negatively, I think we feel a little better about ourselves. When we critique positively, we almost wonder if we would measure up to that. So I think it's easier to say bad things than good things, because in saying bad things, we make ourselves feel a little bit better.
Well, I think the time, too. When things happen kindly and nicely and they go along, you just continue on with life.
Yeah.
It takes time to complain. And so if you're trying to still push to get a service out of something, you're going
really
to motivate.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Somebody sends you free coupons if you say it was great.
Right, exactly. Right, but they should. But I just did that recently. We had an amazing book signing at the Lifeway Christian store in Plano, and the manager, Larry, was awesome. And it turned out he's a former pastor, and I could totally see it afterwards, because the people that came to the store, they knew him. He engaged with them. It wasn't just a customer experience, it was real ministry. So I wrote to his boss, essentially the head of the company, saying, wow, this was amazing. Thank you so much. You need to have everyone like this. This was absolutely phenomenal. And his response back to me was, thank you so much for telling us that, because the only feedback we ever get from different places is negative.
That's right.
So we rarely get to hear that we're doing something right. And that made me sad.
Well, you're talking about almost as an individual, and a relationship you had with an individual.
Yes.
And so would you be more likely to give negative or positive feedback to individuals in your life?
Yes.
That's not a yes or no question.
It is. It's yes and no. Okay. Or it's yes and yes. Yes, I'm more likely to give feedback to an individual. And yes, I'm more likely to receive it, the reciprocal.
To give positive versus negative information to an individual.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and I think it depends on the relationship. There's people who I'm going to give a lot of positive feedback. I'll tell you, one of the biggest lessons I've learned in leading the larger church now that we have is for the people who are my direct reports, I can have really honest, evaluative, critique conversations with them. For the people who are levels below me, I can't. Because my words weigh too much, and they shouldn't. So I try to say only great positive things to them, and if there's something negative, I tell their supervisor.
To tell them.
So
That's good. That's good.
So,
we're going to go to break, but when we come back, we're hoping you'll have some critiques for us. Constructive criticism is good, and we welcome it on our Facebook page or on our website, but we want you to stay tuned and watch the end of the show before you make any judgments.
Diet and exercise are never easy. Then again, neither is dying. Sadly, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and stroke kill nearly 1 million people a year. Most of these deaths could be prevented. Please, talk to your doctor about your risk for diabetes and heart disease. And if your doctor recommends lifestyle changes or medication, listen. The reason so many die is because not enough are willing to change. You can stop it, starting right now. It's your life. Listen to your doctor. Eat better. Get moving.
In today's tough economy, your debt problems shouldn't fall into the wrong hands. Having a trusted partner to turn to can make all the difference. The National Foundation for Credit Counseling is a non-profit organization whose members will create a personalized plan that gets you on the road to recovery. Knowing the difference can make all the difference. To connect with a certified counselor in your community, call us or visit debtadvice.org.
Welcome back. We're talking about criticism, and before we went to break, I said, hey, you're welcome to give us some constructive criticism, and we do appreciate that from you, but sometimes there are people who you're more inclined to listen to criticism from, and so, for example, if somebody said, I've watched every show from the beginning, I would take what they had to say with a lot of weight. If they said, I was flipping channels, and I didn't like the color of the sweater you were wearing, I probably wouldn't take that with as much weight. So let me ask you, are there factors that matter when you're either giving or receiving criticism?
Yeah, of course there are. I mean, I think your level of expertise should weigh into that. I think the level of relationship you have, we mentioned that earlier. I mean, there are multiple facets, and some to the point where you just don't even get it.
Yes.
Because it's just not worth it. I mean, I'll never forget one day a guy was preaching at our church, and he's a staff person in our larger network of churches, and it was not good. And afterwards he came off, and as if I'm great, but I'm not, but he came off, and I said, can I tell you 2 things I would do differently? And it was within 30 seconds of him ending, and he said, okay. And I told him he didn't care, he didn't change a thing, and I thought, and I was right about it probably, but I thought, what a horrible approach. And that's not going to help anybody, and so the timing of it is a part of the facet.
The relationships, what you're saying about relationships, I think that's really key too. And I think the season of life that we are in matters. I mean, you may be really wrestling with something and others are trying to speak into your life to help you with what you're wrestling with, and you may not be ready for that. Or if the person that's trying to speak into your life has never experienced what you're going through, I think sometimes it's harder to receive information. So I think it's really important
to single person giving you marriage advice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know. Or I get it sometimes because I don't have kids and trying to give parenting advice because I just happen to see it because I'm around the kids, but because I don't have kids, sometimes people don't want to hear from me.
What's a graceful way, if you were going to give me parenting advice, you don't have kids, I do. I have 1. Gavin's got 4, so even more so with him.
So give me all the advice you can.
So how should I do that? Go, you don't know what you're talking about? Or could there be an element of truth in what you're saying? Is it my responsibility to kind of consider what you're saying and then decide, well, you know what, she just doesn't know because she's not in that position?
I think if we all erred on the side of looking to see if there's an element of truth in something, even if someone's way off base, how did they even get there to begin with? Where are they coming from? Is there some truth in there somewhere? They may have ulterior motives. They may be trying to mess with you on something or trying to make your life miserable, but I think we become better when we try to pull out that truth and see, does this upset me because I know that they're kind of right?
Yeah. No, I actually wrote a post on this. We mentioned the blog earlier, but I wrote about this a little bit because I truly believe that I can learn something from every critique, whether I asked for it or not. There's a little nugget of wisdom or truth in every critique. Now, it may be a 15-pound, critique, and there's an ounce of truth and help in it.
Right.
But there's something in that. And so for me, I just try to consider the source for who's giving. I try to ask a lot. And to your point, I try to question a lot. So when I ask for critique, I ask a lot of questions. When I feel like there's something I need to critique, I try to approach it with questions. So I don't say, can I tell you what you did wrong?
Right.
I say, I was thinking. I wonder if it would be better if we. Or, one time when I was doing this, here's something I tried to do. Do you think that would be better? So I think it's the position of humility that really puts us in the place to provide the critique and for it to actually be heard.
And we need to be aware, too, that just because someone hasn't walked in our shoes, because I was saying that, you kind of want to hear from someone who has, but if someone is around us and is observing us, you're likely to see things when you're observing that you're not seeing when you're living it out. So we have to be aware of that.
The best critiques or constructive criticism I've gotten have not been ones I've asked for because I didn't know I needed to ask for it. And somebody was kind enough to say to me, hey, can I just say this? And so I think sometimes I feel like, I can clearly see how you can make that better, and I feel like I'm being helpful, but there's this new thing going on where girls were bossy. Yeah, I was bossy. I mean, teachers told me that.
I think that whole bossy thing is crazy. My critique on that is it's nuts.
But don't you think, though, that most of this speaks about us again? I mean, doesn't everything come back to who we are and what we're shooting? I mean, the reason I think we don't like critique is because we don't want to admit we don't have everything together. We want to look better than we maybe really are. I mean, my goal is not to look good. My goal is to become better.
I think for me, some of the times I don't like critiques is because it's embarrassing. Like, I should have seen that. I should have known better.
That's the point, right? Is that we're more concerned about how we look than growing and getting better.
Or how we come across. It's like, oh my gosh, I came across that way? That was not my intent or my heart at all. I get into that in marriage discussions a lot. Really? That's how it came across? Because don't you know me enough to know that's not my intention? It's like, wow, if I'm coming across that way, I got to fix something.
so helpful to evaluate our heart in that. And if we feel tension, we say this all the time, pay attention to the tension. If you feel tension, pay attention to that. It probably speaks a lot more about something internally than it does about what's happening on the outside.
But the injustice thing, too, when we feel like there's been an injustice done, and we're so quick. I did that today. This woman almost hit me. She was talking on her phone. So, there's a part of me that just wants to teach this woman a lesson. But the only thing I could do was honk my horn loud enough to interrupt her phone call.
Right.
But then after that, I can't do anything about it. I can't go teach her a lesson and tell her how dangerous it is what she was doing and how she was driving and she's endangering her children.
How long did you think about it, though?
I thought about it for a good 10 minutes. But where I landed was, I'm kind of glad I couldn't just get out of my car and walk up to her window and she could have shot me or whatever. But I'm kind of glad that I realized that I can't do anything about that.
I think, too.
You need to understand your limits.
First of all, you say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I have learned, and the hard way, because, in my 20s, I think I felt like I had every answer to every problem.
Yes.
Through my 30s, as I'm closing on the end of that, I'm realizing that there's more that I don't know than I do know. And I guess in my 40s, I'll learn a lot more about that.
You learn how much you really don't know in your 40s.
Correct. And so one thing I think I've also realized when it comes to critiques is that while I'm often willing to give a critique, I only know a part of the information. I think it's so funny when people critique our presidents. And I think, do you have any idea what he is looking at, reading, dealing with on an hour-to-hour basis? For you to sit here and critique and act like you could do it better, I mean, you may see the world differently, and you may have a different value set than the president. That's okay.
Yeah.
But to try to critique as if you're better, come on. I mean,
walk a mile in their shoes.
Right. And so I feel like for me, it's like and even in the car, I mean, I've learned this in restaurants before. You see a person do something stupid, you're like, what is their problem? They're like, oh, this came from a funeral.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like,
you don't know what they're going through at the time.
You don't know what you don't know.
She could have been talking to a doctor because her child's terminally ill. You don't know what they're experiencing.
You don't know what you don't know, and what you don't know is what usually kills you, right? Or what at least damages your ability to help. And so what I've tried to do is not rush in with a critique. When people rush into me, I also just try to, take a deep breath, put myself in a moment of humility, and just listen. And it doesn't mean anything. I mean, gosh, as a preacher, you know this. We talk about this. Every time you speak, people critique that.
They're just sitting there with a tally.
They are. And they all want to come up and tell you about the one thing you did or that they said, or you're so much better now than you used to be. And I'm like, how bad was I? Like, what does that even mean? Right, what does that even mean?
There was too much fog.
And every time I hear those critiques, I think, okay, it's okay. It's not about my image. It's not about what people think about me. It really isn't.
Well, let me go a step further. I said this during the break. I'll say it on air. I think you're one of the best people I know at taking critiques. I hope I get to be as good at receiving criticism as you are. Not that you get that much of it, but
when you get enough frequently.
But you have invited me to participate sometimes in things you're doing and say, give me some feedback on this. And usually when you do that, you give constructive feedback or things you can make better. The things that are good, you just assume you want to grow from those. You're really good at that. But I hear you saying now, like, I just kind of take a step back. Well, the truth is that it depends on who it's coming from and whether or not you're trying to use it for something.
It's to consider the source.
Right.
It's very rare, though, that you give me feedback when I don't ask.
Right. I've stumbled on that a few times. But I feel like there's a general relationship between us where you've invited.
I will tell you, interpersonally, when you give me feedback when I haven't asked for it, I don't listen as well. But when I call you or invite you to the office and go, hey, let's spend 30 minutes and let me talk to you about something, I listen differently.
Isn't that so true in marriages? In the heat of an argument, isn't that where we try to criticize and fix our spouses when that is not the time to try to criticize and fix our spouses?
That's a good point in marriage.
Because approach and timing is everything.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
In fact, can I ask, there's a question that I just learned to ask. A good friend of mine, Clay Scroggins, he's a pastor of one of our churches in Cumming, North Atlanta. And he introduced a phrase to our staffs, and I just thought it was fantastic. His statement was, if you were me, what would you do differently? And I thought, what a beautiful question to invite criticism, to invite feedback. If you were me, what would you do differently? It puts everybody on a position where they feel like they can give feedback. It puts you in a position of humility. If people feel like they want to say something, they can. You give them a platform. Now, you're not saying you're going to do everything they say.
It's kind of good for marriage, too.
Oh, it is.
The producer who produces the show, Greg West, is very good about it. The first thing he'll say to me after we've taped a show is, how did you feel about it? Without giving any opinion, which is always sort of like, well, I thought it was good. Did you think it was good? There's always sort of this balance between, I didn't. If I said it was good, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's a helpful thoughtful thing because he's not starting out with here are all the things I thought were wrong or good or whatever, but looking to see what my thought and my feel was. And I think what he's doing also is showing that what it looks like from a production booth is very different than what it feels like on stage, and very different what it looks like from an audience at home.
Isn't that so true about life? It's just like you're saying, we don't know what people are walking through, so it looks different to you because you're not walking through what they're walking through. Perspective is so key in criticism.
What kinds of criticism do your students come and ask for, or what kinds of criticism do you feel like you need to give them that they're not asking for to help them grow?
There's a lot.
My criticism is that you need to ask for more criticism.
Yeah. Well, it's honestly student responsibility is my biggest criticism to them, is that they're wanting me to do their job. Like I had a student who emailed, I couldn't find the discussion board, and so my email back was not, well, here's where it is. It was, really, even after you read the news feed where I wrote how to find it, kind of making the point of, why are you asking me something you should be doing? So I really work hard to teach student responsibility. So that's where I often criticize them. I tell them, I don't want you texting me and calling me and emailing me if you haven't done your due diligence to find the answer. And so that's where I see it a lot, where in this culture where we're that's where I can criticize them, is they're trying to have other people do their work. So I do that with my students. But even just grammar, I'm criticizing their grammar because that's what I'm paid to do. I am paid to write, no, never do this with your grammar.
No one has ever paid me to do that.
What do they pay you to do? I mean, I know people, probably other pastors or other church leaders come to you and ask for feedback or criticism.
I get asked a lot to listen to messages and critique other people's content or presentation styles, organizational structure, how they lead, how they develop people. It's so fascinating, though, the people who ask me for feedback, their heart behind it, what they're really hoping to get out of it. I love meeting with pastors who genuinely want to get better. And I don't feel like I've cornered the market on anything, honestly. I mean, I feel like that we all have a cup that we're trying to fill up, and I've got like a thimble full. and so, but it's not my job to fill anybody's cup, as I mean, my boss Andy says. It's not my job to fill anybody's cup, but it is my responsibility, stewardship, I think, for me to at least pour out my thimble. You know, I can't tell you everything you need to know about preaching, but I can tell you what I know about it. Like, I can't tell you everything you need to know about leading a megachurch. I can tell you what I know about it. And I think that's a stewardship of the responsibility that we have. I feel like God has placed a lot of us in positions to have learned things. I think we have a stewardship to manage that well and to share that.
Well, if your analogy holds that you have a thimble full and you're pouring it out into people, that means that if I ask a bunch of people and get all their thimbles, I should get a cup full at some point.
That's exactly right.
You know,
that's exactly right.
Grow and
I got harshly critiqued recently, but thankfully the people that I work with knew me well enough to understand that the critique that came in, she was likely off base because they knew me well enough to know that this is not how I work. So I was really fortunate too. So I think that even sometimes the people that we surround ourselves with are so critical so that we're not constantly reacting to the criticism, because we can often react to the criticism improperly.
A Harvard study said that you need 6 pieces of positive for every piece of negative, but that it's not all positive. You need to have the negative in there because it helps to wake people up, and it helps to make them realize there's a problem or just pay attention to something. But I thought you said something in the dressing room that was really interesting. You said, when I get criticism, I also have this other thing. What is it?
I have an encouragement folder that I have saved on my computer because thankfully another publicity, PR world is a very thankless job. Usually people are upset with you when things are really bad, and they don't tell you when things go really well. You're not the ones who are thanked, it's the publisher and everybody else around you, not you, for your job.
It's like being a pastor.
Yeah, it's very much like being a pastor. Very much so, because you're a critical member of the team, but you don't get thanked very often. But so what I do is when I get those critiques, I go and I open up my encouragement folder, which are the few times that I've gotten things back from people, hey, you did a really great job, or thank you so much for helping me with this, or wow, I'm so glad you took the time to do this for me, or whatever. So I have to go back to that folder sometimes to remember that I am doing my job well and as unto the Lord, even though someone over here is having a really bad day and decided to take it out on me.
So this is a balance to it. You want to take the negative things and then not focus solely on those, because our brain's actually wired to remember the negative things more, all the way back to caveman times when we had to be alert to the things that would kill us. So we pay attention to the bad things and not always pay attention as much to the good things. So when we come back, I'm going to ask Gavin to talk about a verse that he talked about on another show, and I think it relates to this whole thing that we're discussing. So stay tuned and we'll find out what Gavin has to say after this break.
When When our men and women join the military, they're told if they're injured, our government will take care of them. But what if you served and sacrificed for your country and couldn't get the specialized care, military benefits, and career opportunities you needed? Chris Sullivan was on patrol in Iraq when a sniper's bullet severed his spinal cord, leaving him paralyzed. Chris now needs a good job. He's one of the 85% of veterans with severe disabilities who are unemployed.
We got people who have amazing abilities, and they're just not having the opportunity to go back to work and live their full potential.
Paralyzed Veterans of America is on a mission. Mission ABLE, to help our seriously wounded veterans receive what they need most: care, benefits, and jobs.
If it wasn't for PVA, I would not be where I'm at today. I would have never had this job opportunity.
Join the mission now for America's paralyzed veterans at mission-able.com.
I think mentors like being a mentor because they'll really enjoy it. They'll enjoy the kids. They'll enjoy teaching kids. They will enjoy helping kids.
I just love helping children.
Well, I'm reading better now because of her.
It really does make me really feel proud of her.
My mentor is a great person. When I grow up, I want to be just like my mentor. Mentoring works. Become a mentor.
Welcome back. We've been talking about criticism and how it's hard to handle sometimes and how it's hard to give when we really do need to give it. And sometimes it's the receiver who has problem receiving it when they really need to be open to it. And other times it's the giver who's just not giving it in the way that they should. But on another show that we did recently, you mentioned a verse that I think actually talks about this. We, right before break, had talked about it's important to have a balance and to have so much positive with a little bit of negative. And there's a verse that you have about seasoning with salt. And I think that, tell us what that verse is.
It's in Colossians. Paul wrote it. He just says to be wise in the way you act towards outsiders, make the most of every opportunity. Then he gives instructions on how to do that. He says, let your conversations, which I always miss that word, but let your conversations, which means you're relationally engaged, you're actually conversing with people, you're not talking at them, you're talking with them. Every Christian should learn this. Let your conversations be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you will know how to answer everyone. And I think for me, the idea that I will be relationally connected enough with someone that I can have conversation with them, whether they believe what I believe or not, and that I'm going to always lead with grace, not lead with truth. But God is going to provide opportunities like he has with me through grace to sprinkle in truth when it's appropriate and when I'm ready to hear it. That, to me, is the critique part. The grace in the relationship is what allows the critique to be heard. And I think the reason we want to critique people is because we genuinely probably want to help them, hopefully.
I was going to say, it sometimes feels like when you're talking to a non-believer or somebody's trying to push their religion on you, if you're not a believer, it feels like a critique.
Yeah, it does.
But if we handled it in the way you just described with that verse.
Yeah, no, it's not as much a critique about what you're not doing right. It's a critique about what God has in store for you. It's not that what we want from you, it's what God has for you. And I would love to have a conversation with you about that and talk about my story. And we can argue about everything in the Bible. It's hard to argue about what God has done in my life. And so when we can get to a point in a relationship, see, we don't get that chance without conversations and relationships, right? And so to be able to get to a place with people who don't see the way you do, that you can be comfortable enough with the tension of that to actually foster a relationship.
There can also be abusive criticism, so guard your heart. You definitely need to be in a place of guarding your heart, not just receiving criticism thinking, well, I must be really awful and I've got to filter all this in. Guard your heart.
Don't forget what God thinks about you.
Yes. Find the truth in it.
Guard your heart, but guard your mouth when you're giving it too. I think is equally important. But I think if you're a person out there who is not a believer, I think what Gavin said is right. Have a conversation with somebody. Don't look at it as a critique. Just be open to whatever feedback they may be giving you, and just use it to explore. Questions are always better than solid answers or judgments. Thanks for being a part of our show, and let us know what you think.
Who am I? I'm someone who cares about smiles. I'm an orthodontist, a specialist who corrects teeth and jaws. I received 2 to 3 years of specialized education beyond dental school. I'm the maker of Healthy Smiles.